I can't fathom how you manage to wake up in the morning, enjoy a good time together, head off to work, and then jeopardize your entire marriage within just a few hours. It's simultaneously astonishing and quite dreadful. Infidelity is arguably the most deceitful act that can occur in a marriage, and the most disturbing aspect is that nobody is safe from it. When I awoke, there was no hint of trouble. The alarm sounded at 5, and my wife Diana pulled me back into bed as I attempted to rise. She kissed me and embraced me. After 25 years, she remained charming, and I was drawn to be close with her. Subsequently, she went to prepare coffee while I showered, and then I made breakfast as she showered. During breakfast, we talked about our plans for the day, and Diana proposed meatloaf and baked potatoes for dinner. That sounds enticing. I'll pick up some fresh French bread and perhaps a pecan pie from the bakery, I responded. Pecan pie, you spoil me, she joked. I wouldn't want to spoil anyone else, I retorted, kissing her as we walked hand in hand to the garage before heading out and starting our separate work days. The drive to work was uneventful, as was the morning's first half. Around 11, Harry, my boss, called me into his office. We have a problem in St. Louis. Baker caught Smithers with his wife, and now Baker's in jail while Smithers is in the hospital. No one is available to run the office there. I regret the short notice, but you need to take the 2:20 flight, get to St. Louis, and manage the office. I'm not sure how long you'll need. To stay, it will depend on the seriousness of the situation between Baker and Smithers. If it's severe, Baker might be in jail for some time and Smithers might be in the hospital for a while too. Even if they're both released soon, I can't envision them working together again. I'll need to deliberate, but it seems likely that one will have to leave. I'm uncertain which one. More information is needed for a decision. It's clear to me that Smithers overstepped by becoming involved with Baker's wife. He should have foreseen Baker's reaction if he were ever discovered. I can't confirm whether Baker actually caught Smithers with his wife or if Smithers is at fault at all. All I have is the report the secretary provided over the phone. Perhaps you can uncover more details once you're there. I attempted to call Diana to update her, but her secretary said she was in a meeting. I promised to call back later and then went home to pack. Arriving home, I noticed Diana's car in the driveway, which was odd since she was supposed to be in a meeting. Entering the living room, I confirmed she was indeed in a meeting, but not the kind I had expected based on her secretary's information. A trail of discarded clothes led from the couch to the staircase, including men's clothing such as trousers at the stairs' foot. Retrieving them, I found a wallet in a back pocket. Inside, the driver's license bore the name Stanton North. I pocketed the wallet and continued my investigation, finding a sport coat over an armchair back and a checkbook, which I also took. As I ascended the stairs and neared the top, I heard sounds from the bedroom. Do this quickly. Do you like it? Oh yes, keep going. Upon entering, I witnessed how my once faithful wife had betrayed me for many years in our own bedroom, accompanied by deeply offensive remarks. Don't stop, she uttered as I passed by towards the closet. I was nearly at the closet door when Stanton North noticed me and halted abruptly, exclaiming, "Oh!" Diana, with her eyes still closed, seemed confused as her lover suddenly stopped. "Don't stop, damn it, don't stop. I'm almost." Then she saw me and screamed, "No, oh God, no," attempting to scramble away from North. "I won't be long," I said, entering the dressing room. "I just need to pack my bag and then I'll leave you two alone." I then took socks and underwear from the dresser and started packing my suitcase. I stood with my back to them, yet their voices floated through the air. Diana's voice was desperate. "Get the hell away from me," while North muttered, "God, what a mess." As I turned to retrieve a bag of clothes from the closet, I caught sight of North exiting the bedroom and Diana attempting to conceal herself. Amid her frantic motions, she spouted phrases like, "What are you doing, Frank? Why are you packing?" and offered feeble explanations such as, "It's not what you think, Frank. I can explain." Despite her objections, I continued to pack my belongings, disregarding Diana's pleas to discuss the matter. The sound of the front door slamming prompted me to wonder about North's whereabouts. Considering Diana's car was the only one in the driveway, he must have arrived with her. Ignoring Diana's calls to talk, I kept packing, dismissing her insistence that I listen and allow her to explain. I left the house without saying a word since I had entered the bedroom and instructed them not to stop on my account. As I headed to my car, Diana was shouting, "Wait, Frank. Don't leave, please talk to me," as I opened my car door. I scanned the surroundings but saw no sign of Stanton North. Perhaps he was hidden nearby, watching and waiting to see if I would leave. Diane was racing down the front walkway and almost reached the passenger side door handle when I drove off from the curb. It's a miracle I managed to reach the airport without causing harm to myself or others. My mind was clearly not on driving. How did it happen? Why did it happen? I pondered, having believed Diane and I were stable. Reflecting on our life together, I couldn't pinpoint anything that would suggest what I had just witnessed was even remotely possible. My God, how could she have done what she did to me in the morning and then engaged in what I just witnessed? Diane and I first met when my father received a promotion, necessitating our family's relocation 1,500 miles away. The move was challenging. I was torn from the friends I had grown up with and attended school with, and thrust into a new school where I knew no one. During lunchtime, I found myself sitting alone at a table in the cafeteria, feeling sorry for myself, when the most stunning girl I had ever seen approached me. She sat down and greeted, "Hey there, new kid," extending her hand across the table. "I'm Diane," she introduced herself. It took me a moment to realize she was offering a handshake. I accepted it and replied, "Hello, Diane, I'm Frank." "Where are you from, Frank?" she inquired. From there, we spent the rest of the lunch period getting to know each other. Diane had joined me because she empathized with what I was experiencing, having gone through the same thing the previous year. By the time the bell rang, we had made plans for her to show me around town. For 6 weeks, we had a serious relationship. We behaved like typical teenagers. As a hormone-driven young man, I naturally wanted Diane to take our relationship to a new level, but she resisted. She was firm in her promise to her mother to marry as a virgin. Fortunately, for the sake of my peace of mind, she decided to break that promise on her 18th birthday. After this significant event, we had a serious conversation. I expressed a desire to marry her, but on the condition that I wait until I graduated from college. On the contrary, she wanted to get married immediately and was unhappy that I chose to wait. Discussing this issue with my mother led to an unexpected proposal. Despite thinking my mother was somewhat conservative, she suggested, "Ed, why don't you move in with her and live together until you graduate?" I questioned the feasibility of such a plan, citing financial concerns. My intention to wait was to ensure financial stability, as I couldn't imagine supporting my wife and attending school simultaneously. My mother reassured me, pointing out that my college tuition fund was large enough to cover the cost of renting a small off-campus space. She suggested that I might need to work part-time to afford groceries, but it was feasible. I mulled it over and then raised the issue with Diane. After a thorough discussion, we both agreed to take on part-time jobs to make it happen. We searched and found a modest apartment within my budget. Then came the challenging part, breaking the news to her parents. Her mother was shocked that Diane hadn't kept her promise to remain a virgin. She wept and sobbed, while Diane's father hurled both old and newly concocted insults at me. He strictly forbade Diane and me from continuing and insisted she never see me again. Diane signaled for me to wait in the car and emerged 10 minutes later with 2 suitcases. She never revealed what transpired after I left, but it took 3 years before she spoke to her parents again, only to inform them of their grandson. Suddenly, I became the ideal partner, and her parents praised me endlessly. However, the damage was done, and I merely tolerated them. Diane eventually forgave them, and they became integral parts of our lives, wonderful grandparents to our 3 children, though my tolerance persisted. Years passed, the children grew and ventured into their own lives, and now at least the children wouldn't have to endure the pain of divorced parents. I arrived at the airport ahead of schedule, completed the check-in process, and then settled into one of the numerous coffee shops within the terminal to await the boarding announcement for my flight. Taking out North's wallet and checkbook, I began to sift through their contents. Tucked behind his driver's license, I discovered a card labeled emergency information detailing his blood type and other pertinent details. However, what immediately drew my attention was the section containing his emergency contact information. It listed Alls North as his contact, identified as his wife along with a contact number. I dialed the number on my cell phone. "Hello, is this Mrs. North?" "Yes, it is. My name is Frank Bello. I regret having to make this call, but I recently found your husband in a compromising situation with my wife, and I felt you should be informed." "You must be joking." "I'm afraid not, Ma, and I refuse to believe you, Mr. whoever you are. My Stan would never betray me like that. Here's the plan when he returns home tonight. Ask him if he's acquainted with Diane Bello, then request to see his wallet and checkbook. He won't be able to comply because I have them. I took them from his clothes after discovering them on my living room floor when I returned home early. Currently, I'm at the airport awaiting a flight to St. Louis. Upon my return, I'll gladly deliver them to you personally. Are you completely serious about this? I'm afraid so. When will you return? I'm not sure. I need to fill in for someone who's out sick, and I'll be there until they can resume work. Could you mail the wallet and checkbook to me? I suppose I could, but I should warn you in advance your husband's wallet contains $87. After witnessing what I did in my bedroom, I have an urgent need to drown my sorrows with a drink, and your husband will cover the tab. There might be some money left, but I can't say how much. Send it to my office. She provided the address, and I jotted it down. Then she added, if you can send it overnight, I'll reimburse you. I can manage that. My flight is boarding now, so I have to go. I bid farewell and ended the call. North dodged a bullet. Initially, my plan was to leave his wallet and credit cards on the bathroom counter, hoping that whoever stumbled upon them would indulge in a spending spree. However, contacting his wife changed everything. I hoped she would make his life miserable. My phone had been buzzing incessantly since I left the house, mostly Diane calling, so I ignored it. It rang again as I exited the coffee shop, and assuming it was Diane once more, I glanced at the screen. Surprisingly, it was a call from the office. I returned it, and Harry answered. Frank, you need to call home. Diane just called me frantic because she can't reach you. There's a reason for that, Harry. I'm avoiding her calls. When I went home to pack, she was there, not alone, and engaging in inappropriate behavior. I'll talk to her when I return. Maybe by then I'll have cooled off enough not to throttle her. Do yourself a favor and instruct the receptionist not to put her calls through after ensuring that everything was running smoothly in the office and addressing any immediate concerns. My first task was to visit the post office to send Mrs. North her husband's wallet and checkbook. I included my contact information so she could get in touch if she had any questions. With that handled, I reached out to the police to inquire about Baker's whereabouts and whether I could visit him. When I saw Baker, aside from some bruised nipples and a broken finger, he seemed relatively unscathed. He hadn't undergone a bail hearing yet, as the authorities were awaiting updates from the hospital regarding Smithers' condition to determine the charges. I shared Harry's concerns and asked Baker for his side of the story. It was a scenario that sounded all too familiar. Baker had returned home during his lunch break to pick up something he had forgotten in the morning, only to discover Smithers in the midst of an illicit affair with his wife. In the ensuing confrontation, Baker inflicted injuries on Smithers, while his wife called 911, claiming her husband was a threat. The police arrived, Smithers was hospitalized, and Baker was arrested. My next stop was the hospital, where I was supposed to visit Smithers. He was dealing with several fractures and some issues concerning his dignity and equipment. He told me it wasn't my fault. She attacked me first, so I defended myself. I'm single and enjoy female company like any other guy. If anyone is to blame, it's Baker. If he had taken care of her properly and met her needs, she wouldn't have been looking for trouble. I had no sympathy for him. I called Harry, relayed what had happened, and suggested that he consider moving Smithers out of the office unless there were grounds for his dismissal. I promised to thoroughly investigate the official cases to find everything that Harry could use. Baker's hearing was scheduled for the next day, and the bail was set at $250,000. He could only afford it by using his house as collateral, but his wife refused to consent, so he would remain in jail until his father and brother could intervene. The next morning at 9:30, Alls North called me. She recounted that upon her husband's return home, she confronted him about knowing a Diane Bellows. His complexion paled as he denied any acquaintance with Diane Bellows. When pressed further, he hesitantly admitted his uncertainty. Alls then asked for his wallet and checkbook, to which he sheepishly confessed to having left them on his desk at work. He quickly shifted the conversation to inquire about dinner, though aware of the looming trouble he faced. The full extent of his predicament remained unknown to him, awaiting revelation when I confront him again tomorrow. All I can confirm about the duration of their affair is that it occurred I stumbled upon them and then promptly exited. Regarding my wife's perspective, I'm in the dark. I haven't spoken with her since finding them in the bedroom, and I won't until I return home. When you do speak with her, give me a call. I'd like to cross-reference their accounts. Will do. I'm eager to hear both sides as well. During the day, I received numerous calls from Diane, but I chose not to answer any of them. Harry must have informed her of my location in St. Louis, and she probably got the office number from the help desk. Dixie, our receptionist, informed me about a call on the third line, which turned out to be from Diane. What do you want, Diane? We need to talk, Frank. I need to make it clear that what happened is not what you think at all. I'm not interested in talking to you right now. I'm still at the stage where I want to do something to you and then go after your lover with a gun in my hands. He's not my lover. Leave it alone, Diane. Don't call here anymore. We'll discuss this when I get home, not a minute earlier, I said before hanging up. In the afternoon, Baker's father called me and informed me that bail had been posted and Baker would be released the next morning. When I heard this news, I felt regret. As long as Baker remained in prison and Smithers was hospitalized, I didn't have to go home to face Diane. That evening, once again, I dined and had drinks at the North Place and returned to my room around 7. The phone rang, and since only Harry and Alls North had my number, I picked it up. It was Alls. After exchanging greetings, she updated me on her end of things. When he arrived home, I asked him again about his wallet and checkbook. He claimed they were missing from his office when he arrived and blamed someone from the night cleaning crew, stating he'd file a complaint the next morning. I couldn't help but chuckle. How long does he think he can keep avoiding it? I have no idea, but I put an end to it. I confronted him about his dishonesty. I made it clear that he knew he was caught when I mentioned your wife, and then asked for his wallet and checkbook. There was only one way I could have connected the dots, and he knew it. Then he had the audacity to deny knowing what I was talking about, which infuriated me. So I took his wallet and checkbook out of my purse and threw them at him. I told him exactly how I obtained them and mentioned that I called his office and discovered he worked with the woman he claimed not to know. I even fibbed a little, saying that when you returned from St. Louis, you'd show me the photos you took with your cell phone camera before they realized you were there. How did you react to that? He eventually realized he was caught and completely broke down, pleading for forgiveness and insisting it was the sole instance of his infidelity. He claimed he couldn't resist because your wife had been pursuing him for months, making it difficult to resist the advances of a beautiful woman who was eager for his affection. It's unfortunate that I wasn't more clear-headed when I stumbled upon them. I do have a camera on my cell phone, I just didn't think to use it. Do you buy his explanation that she pursued him? It's possible she wouldn't be the first to do so. Was it really just a one-time thing with her that could be true, but he was lying when he claimed it was his only act of cheating? I know of at least 3 occasions where he stayed well. Not entirely true. 3 times I've had people inform me that he was unfaithful while I was away visiting family. I never confronted him about them because I didn't really want to know if they were true. You mentioned that his claim about Diane chasing him could be accurate, and that she wouldn't be the first to do so. Why did you express that? Stan is quite gifted in that department, and some women are curious to verify it when they hear about it. A week ago, I would have never imagined Diane doing something like that, but that was before I caught her and your husband together. I have to leave now, but if I find out anything else, I'll let you know. Remember, I want to hear her side of the story when you return home and talk to her. I won't forget. At 11 the following morning, Ray Baker phoned me to inform me that he had been released on bail from jail. He explained that he needed the remainder of that day and the next day to attend to personal matters. His wife had obtained a restraining order against him, and he had to arrange temporary accommodation while also coordinating with the court to gain access to his house for retrieving his belongings. He mentioned that he would be back in the office on Thursday. Afterwards, I contacted Harry to update him on the situation. Additionally, I informed him that during my investigation at the office, I discovered discrepancies in Smithers' expense reports which could potentially justify his termination. I indicated that I intended to return home on Thursday evening and would need to take Friday off to manage my own affairs, with plans to return to work on Monday morning. I successfully navigated through the following 2 days without any trouble, and by Thursday morning, Ray had returned to work. After bringing him up to speed on office matters, I inquired about his situation at home since I was going through something similar. He explained, the restraining order only mandates that I stay 500 feet away from her. I can enter the house whenever she's not present. If she refuses to leave when I want to enter, I have to involve someone from the court. So I waited until she went to work. Then my brother and I went in and retrieved what I needed. I have no intention of going back. Expressing frustration, he continued, I don't understand what she's thinking. She got the order, but that's it. She didn't touch the bank accounts. I emptied them out yesterday, I interjected. I thought this state operated on a no-fault basis, meaning assets are typically divided equally in a divorce, he clarified. That's true for divorce, but I'm not pursuing that route. I'm simply walking away. If she wants a divorce, she'll have to cover the costs, and by the time she files, our assets will be minimal. We took out a second mortgage on the house to renovate the basement, so there's no equity there. And the money I withdrew from the bank will be spent. I can argue that I needed it for my new living arrangements after she barred me from the house. Oh, and I need to call Harry to update my insurance and other paperwork. Did she explain her actions to you? I haven't had any communication with her since the police took me in, and I don't plan on speaking with her. The reason behind her actions is irrelevant. What matters is that she committed them. I opted to rest well for the night before facing Diane at home. Consequently, I contacted the airline and booked a morning flight. Upon waking up, I felt refreshed and enjoyed a hearty breakfast before catching the airport shuttle, arriving back home in Denver by 11. Afterward, I visited the bank, withdrew funds from our savings, redeemed 5 out of 9 certificates of deposit from the deposit box, and transferred all the funds to our checking account. Diane was still at work upon my return, leaving me alone until 6. Utilizing this time, I contacted the credit card companies to obtain payoff balances and subsequently cancelled all but 5 cards. I retained the American Express card primarily used for business expenses, along with 2 other cards in my name, and assigned 2 to Diane's name. Following this, I returned to the bank to arrange wire transfers for settling the card balances using the funds in our checking account. With these tasks completed, I allocated half of the remaining checking balance to open a new checking account solely in my name. Additionally, I secured another safe deposit box solely under my name, placing 2 of the remaining 4 CDs inside before heading back home. Having converted one of the kids' bedrooms into a home office and den, and maintaining the others as spare rooms for their occasional visits, I selected one of these spare bedrooms adjacent to the den for myself. After moving all my belongings, I was fully settled in by the time Diane returned home. I heard Diane enter and call out for me, Frank, where are you ignoring her? I listened as she moved through the house in search of me. Eventually she made her way upstairs, and I kept my back turned as she entered. Frank, she called again, but I remained silent. Frank, please, we need to talk. Finally facing her, I retorted. Where is it written that I have to engage in conversation with an unfaithful person? She flinched at my words, and then I continued, however, we do need to discuss our finances. Why, she questioned. Because your actions have necessitated changes, I replied. Please go downstairs and take a seat at the kitchen table. I'll join you shortly. After she left, I gathered the papers I had been working on, selected the necessary ones, and followed Diane downstairs, taking a seat across from her at the kitchen table. I began, while I was away, I had ample time to contemplate what should be done. Ultimately, I've decided to take no action. When I conveyed that message, I noticed a brief moment of relief on her face, but it swiftly dissipated as I continued. By saying nothing, I mean that I intend to have minimal or no involvement with you. Frankly, I don't see the point in spending money on divorce attorneys, especially considering my age and the unlikelihood of another marriage in my future. Therefore, I have no need for a change in marital status. If you desire a divorce, you are welcome to pursue it at your own expense. However, for now, there will be some adjustments. I proceeded to outline all the financial arrangements regarding credit cards, savings, CDs, and our joint checking account. You can keep the original safety deposit box, but I suggest opening your own checking and savings accounts. We'll maintain the joint account for house expenses. Do you follow so far? But why are you don't play dumb, Diane? Now, as for the household account, it will cover shared expenses. I handed her a sheet of paper. This lists the essential costs of running the household mortgage, utilities, phone, gas, water, sewage, taxes, and insurance. From now on, we're essentially roommates. You'll need to deposit half of the total amount listed here into the household account every month. We'll share the house. With the exception of 2 rooms, you'll have the master bedroom, and I'll take Carol's old room. Why are you moving into Carol's room? You should be in the master bedroom with me after witnessing what was happening in that room. There's no chance I'm staying there, sleeping on that bed, or having anything to do with the woman I saw engaging in those activities on that bed. That's what we need to discuss, Frank. What you witnessed isn't what you're assuming, of course it is. I saw you with another man in our house, on our bed. All right, Frank, but you need to realize it was just physical intimacy. There was no emotional connection, it was merely satisfying my curiosity. I love you, Frank, I always have and always will. My feelings for Stan were purely lustful, and it was a one-time occurrence driven by curiosity. If you hadn't come home, you wouldn't have known, and it wouldn't have happened again. But Diane, that's the issue. I did come home, and I'm fully aware of what happened. Knowing changes everything. You betrayed my trust, which means I can't rely on you. Every word you utter now needs scrutiny to discern truth from falsehood. You claim to love me. But can love coexist with betrayal and disrespect? Can you claim love while bringing another man into our home and sharing our bed, the same bed where we would have slept together? How much love and respect did you show me by offering me the leftovers of another man, knowing we could have made love that night? No, Diane, I can't trust you anymore. You say it was a one-time mistake, never to be repeated, but can I believe you? I have only your assurance, yet your credibility is shattered. It could have been the 10th time already, with plans for more. Regardless, even if it were true. You still betrayed me. You violated the vows we took. What drove you to jeopardize our marriage? What curiosity was worth risking everything for? She looked away, saying, the size of his instrument. You've got to be kidding. The size of his instrument. Why on earth would you be interested in that? Some of the girls in the office met with him, and they wouldn't stop talking about how great it was. I heard all their stories, but I didn't pay much attention until he started showing interest in me. Even then, it took me a while before I started thinking about it. Are you saying that he was the first to show signs of attention? I suppose it was, but I didn't pay much attention to it at first. However, I like the attention, and what kind of woman doesn't like feeling attractive at my age? The attention of a man 10 years younger than me significantly increased my self-esteem. I had lunch with him a couple of times and danced with him at office parties a couple of times. It was during the dance that I thought about the stories I had heard several times. I felt him snuggle up to me, and he really seemed quite attractive to me. The more I thought about these stories, the more curious I became. You're the only man I've ever had a close relationship with. I wondered what another man might be like, especially one who was rumored to be as well endowed as Stan. He kept following me, and I kept thinking until eventually my curiosity got the better of me. So you're saying that the other girls in the office were discussing Stan's prowess in bed? How many girls are we talking about? About 7 of them, so Stan had a relationship with 7 of them, that's what they claimed, 7 of them, just in your office. Stan seemed to be very promiscuous. Have you ever thought that someone who had so many partners could get an infection? Come on, Frank, if that were the case, these girls would most likely have been infected by him. And believe me, word of it would have spread instantly around the office. You may have an STI without any symptoms, Diana. Sometimes it can take months before symptoms appear. If I were you, I would think about getting tested. The point of all this, Frank, is that Stan didn't matter to me at all. There were no feelings of love between us, and I can't even say that it was a lot of sympathy. This is not the impression I got when I entered the room. You know that I enjoy intimacy, Frank. And you know how excessive I can be at times like this with you, so I made a little noise. I didn't have any special feelings for Stan. It was a mistake, Frank, a serious mistake which I deeply regret. I can assure you that it won't happen again. I love you, Frankie. You know that. You can't give up 25 years of a good relationship because of one wrong step. I'm not giving up on anything, Diana. You're the one who put everything at risk by bringing another man into our house and into our bed with that. I got up from the kitchen table, went upstairs to the office, and immersed myself in paperwork. I'm a light sleeper, and that night, about an hour after I went to bed, I was woken up by the sound of the bedroom door opening. Diana entered quietly, closing the door softly behind her. Since it was summer, I was lying on top of a blanket. Diana leaned over me and wanted something more. She always made that impression on me, but it seemed like she was trying to win back my favor with this gesture. However, I surprised her by pushing her away. "Leave me alone, Dee. I'm not interested in being someone's leftover." She left the room in tears. Eventually, after about 20 minutes, I fell asleep again, and no one bothered me for the rest of the night. The next morning, when I came downstairs after a shower, Diana was making coffee in the kitchen. I greeted her with an evasive grunt and ignored her until the coffee was ready. I filled my travel mug and went to work, hardly talking to her. Later, around 10, I called Alls North and told her what I had found 7 other girls. That's what she claimed. "Seems like your husband was quite the charmer at the office. Do you trust her version of events?" Before I walked in on her and your husband, I would have believed anything she said, even if she claimed the sun was rising in the west. But now, I'm not sure. It could be true. Or maybe she's just trying to minimize what happened by making me think it wasn't a big deal. Who knows? Trust went out of the window when she got caught. Everything she says now has to be taken with a grain of salt. Have you made a decision about what to do? The marriage is over, but if there's going to be a divorce, she'll have to initiate it. Right now, my plan is just to live together. We'll be roommates, nothing more. I'm not going to ruin myself financially because she couldn't keep it in her pants. What about you? Have you figured out your next steps? I'm still weighing my options. Let's stay in touch. Frank. Sure thing, Alls. Best of luck to you. During the following week, I ensured I was out and about before Diane woke up, finding ways to occupy myself until late to avoid going home despite Diane waiting up for me. I deliberately disregarded her. When the next weekend came, she attempted to join me in bed once more, but I sternly instructed her to stay away and leave me alone. "Frank, please don't do this to me. I love you, and I want to be with you," Diane pleaded. "I don't want you, Diane. You've caused irreparable damage," I responded. "Oh God, Frank, it was a mistake, just once. I haven't even spoken to him since he left. Please give me another chance. I know I was wrong, and I'm deeply sorry. I swear it won't happen again," Diane implored. "The issue, Diane, is that I can't be certain it was only once. He could have been your 3rd or 4th lover, or even your 10th. You may still be seeing him during your lunch breaks at a motel. When I caught you with him, you shattered my trust, Diane, and I can't trust you to be truthful with me again," I explained. "Please, Frank, there must be a way to mend things between us. I'll do anything, absolutely anything." Diane pleaded desperately. "I'm sorry, Diane, but there's no chance for us to reconcile because I don't want to reconcile. Seeing you with North wrapped around him and hearing you beg for more killed any feelings I had for you. But look at it positively, you're free to explore your desires now. Just not here. This house is neutral ground. Take your partners elsewhere, and I'll do the same." Partners. I won't live without a love life. I've had opportunities, but I stayed faithful because of our vows. You broke yours, which released me from mine. At least I won't bring my affairs here, where you can see. She glanced at me, and I could discern her thoughts. It was clear she believed that by sharing the house and spending time together, she could gradually reintegrate herself into my life. That's exactly what I wanted her to think, so I resolved to burden her with a responsibility. The only reason I'm agreeing to this arrangement is because I'm not keen on enriching lawyers through a divorce, and I'm not willing to give up the comforts of my home to live in an apartment. Losing access to my garage, workshop and patio isn't something I'm willing to sacrifice. You've got 2 options, Diane, either adapt to the new situation or not. If you choose the latter, you can either move out or take over the house payments and expenses while I find another place to live. You claim to love me genuinely, so here's your opportunity to demonstrate it. Either accept cohabitation or take the house, thereby depriving me of my garage, workshop, and patio, just as you deprived me of my wife. The decision is yours. Is there any room for negotiation? I failed to see how, Diane. She remained silent for a moment, then uttered the final blow. What are your plans for the photos? Frank? The photos, the ones you captured on your cell phone. Had she not spoken to North since he stormed out of the house? How then did she know about the cell phone photos? That narrative was concocted by Alls and relayed to her husband days after I caught Diane and North in our bedroom. I couldn't trust anything Diane said anymore. I couldn't bring myself to harm her physically, and ejecting her from the house would bring more trouble than punishment. However, subjecting her to my silent treatment would inflict mental torment upon her, which was the best I could hope for. I knew she still harbored feelings for me, clinging to the slim chance of redemption, but that was never going to happen. My emotions for her died the moment I saw her with North. The longer she held on to hope, the longer my revenge would endure. With my vengeance against Diane settled, I shifted my focus to Stanton North. The findings from the private detectives confirmed my suspicions. Despite being caught by me and his wife discovering his infidelity, it hadn't deterred him in the slightest. He was still engaging in extramarital affairs with 5 women, in addition to his wife. During the 3 weeks I had the private investigators tracking him, he hadn't interacted with Diane but was involved with 2 of her colleagues. One of them, Mary Ellen Bingham, had a husband who worked the afternoon shift every Tuesday and Thursday. After work, North would visit Mary Ellen at her home on Sunflower Way, staying for 2 hours before leaving. Glancing at my watch, I realized that if he stuck to his routine, he would be leaving the house in 10 minutes. I was parked a block away and across the street. I stepped out of my car and approached the Bingham residence, circling around behind the garage. Upon arrival, I put on latex gloves and a ski mask. Mary Ellen had a 3-car garage. After North's visit, he drove into the garage, parked, and quickly closed the door so that the neighbors would not chat about Mary Ellen's guest. I wouldn't want the rumors to get to Mary Ellen's husband, would I? Using a small tire iron, I broke the lock on the back door of the garage and waited for North to appear. When the door leading to the house opened, North stepped outside, but was met by the gaze of Mary Ellen, who watched him leave. North convulsed on the garage floor from the discharge of a 50,000-volt stun gun. Before Mary Ellen could express her shock, I spoke in what I hoped was not a very serious tone. If you make a sound or contact the authorities, your husband will discover everything. It's best for you to return inside and act as though nothing is happening out here. I won't kill him, but rest assured another husband he's betrayed will get justice. She recoiled and shut the door. Mary Ellen recognized me from the gatherings Diane had taken me to. But I relied on the ski mask and altered voice to conceal my identity from her. I couldn't risk her calling the police, so I had to act quickly. As soon as he was out of his pants, I took my revenge. He was proud of his possessions, wasn't he? Well, he paid dearly for that. I did a lot of damage to his instrument. I landed a couple more punches before grabbing my wallet and checkbook and quickly running away. There were no sirens. It seems Mary Ellen did not alert the authorities. As I drove away, I considered my actions, unsure of the extent of the damage caused by the cattle prod. I enjoyed every scream North made. I never found out how things ended up with Mary Ellen. Had she managed to remove North unnoticed, leaving her husband in the dark, or did she have to seek medical help for North, leading to a difficult explanation with her husband? Still wearing latex gloves, I put my wallet and checkbook in a prepared package and sent it to Alls at her office. No note was attached, and I would deny about it, yet when her husband in pain returns home and his things arrive in the mail, she will most likely suspect who is behind it. 3 weeks following my encounter with North, I received a call from Alls. "Are you free for lunch? I haven't made any plans. Why do you ask?" "I think it's time for us to meet face to face. How about noon at the Leo? I'll be the red-haired woman nervously scanning every man who enters, trying to figure out which one is you. Noon works for me." I didn't see her nervously scanning faces, but she was easy to spot as the only redhead in the place, sitting alone. North was a complete idiot to be. Cheating on her, she was stunning. I approached her table. "Mrs. North?" "No, Frank, it's Alls. You haven't called me Mrs. North since our first phone call." I took a seat across from her and asked, "May I inquire what led you to invite me to lunch?" "I just wanted to get a good look at the man who keeps messing up my life." "I'm the one messing up your life?" "How so?" "You made me face the truth. I suspected what he was doing, but hoped that it was not so. Then, despite my doubts, I gave him another chance at your insistence, but then you stripped him of his greatest power." "I'm not getting it." "Yes, it is. Stan may be a good breadwinner and a decent father, but what made him exceptional was his skill in bed. Pay attention to the past tense, and am I responsible for removing this how?" "Don't play innocent, Frank. We both know who hurt him so badly. I have no idea what you're talking about. Of course you don't want to, but since then, no matter what you do to him, he can't work, And don't pretend you don't understand what I mean. Your signature technique is sending wallets by mail at that moment. The waitress approached to take our order. While Alls requested a salad and iced tea, I discreetly assessed her. Undoubtedly, her husband was foolish to have stayed home. Besides being stunning, Alls proved to be quite perceptive. Well, she inquired. Well, what? What am I? Satisfactory. What are you referring to now, what? You didn't expect me to notice you. Checking me out just now, I was caught off guard, and I knew it, so I simply grinned foolishly and replied, Who, me, yes, you, and I hope you like what you see, because the real purpose of this little gathering is to offer it to you. I'm not sure what expression I had on my face when she spoke, but she continued, I'm a very attractive woman, and since you took the toy away from me, I think it's only fair that you take on his role. I was caught off guard and didn't know what to say. She chuckled and remarked, I bet you didn't expect this. Did you? To be honest, it never occurred to me. Well, Frank, that's how I see it. You've deprived me of a partner, so it's only fair that you take his place. Besides, is there a better way to get back at your wife and my husband? I'm not sure, Alls. The offer is tempting, but I'm not sure it's wise. If I give Diana a reason to file for divorce, it could disrupt the situation I'm in right now. You're not going to divorce her. I described my actions, and she grinned. You're evil, aren't you? But don't worry, I don't plan on spreading this all over the place. If Stan does not regain the right to use his equipment, I will divorce him, and I do not want him to have grounds for a counterclaim. Are you serious? You bet. That's how my affair with Allsnorth began. This has been going on for over a year now, and there is no end in sight. Her husband's instrument is still not working. Doctors say there is no physical cause, so it's most likely a psychological problem. Alls plans to stay with him until the end of the year, and if he still can't perform, he's out. As far as I know, Diana is not dating anyone, but she knows that I am. She just doesn't know who I'm with. The realization that I'm with someone else eats her up from the inside, but she keeps holding on, hoping for a miracle that won't happen. I couldn't have asked for better revenge.